Okay, hi folks, welcome to the October 2023 Finance and Administration meeting. Let's begin with approval of minutes from September 2023 in your packet.
I move that we approve them.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Perfect. Okay, Ken, I'll ask, can you give us an update on hiring activities?
Yes, we are still looking for the office clerk, I'm sorry, the records clerk, office assistant position. And we are still looking for a part-time parking controller.
I thought we voted to hire.
Yes, Paul decided that he was more fit for working outdoors. And so rather than see him go, we much prefer him stay as the controller, which he very kindly and willingly went back to. So we're happy to have him back as our controller, which is a huge relief on that end, because otherwise there wasn't really anybody to fill that gap except when officers may have had downtime.
Yeah, great, we still got Paul. Okay, so the office assistant position is still posted, or are there resumes?
It's posted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have, is there anybody who's applied that you're looking to speak to soon, or?
We have received a very large candidate pool, and there's staffing services that are also eager to offer some of their candidates to us as well. I met with one last week. I'm not overly concerned about it. I mean, we had two really good ones for the bookkeeper position, and we're very happy with whom we selected here. So that worked out very well, and we would have been happy if Paul wanted to stay, but he just didn't see it as the right fit.
Right.
And I was happy that he was honest about it, and rather than getting in deep, we were able to get him back to where he needed to be.
Right. I agree. I just was curious whether you'd received some applications that you were like, yes, I'm looking forward to interviewing these people.
Oh
Sounds
yeah,
like
I think we
yes.
always do. I think, the pool gets large, but there's always a few that really stand out that are saying, yeah, we want to interview. And so, our process has been to, kind of sit down with department heads and, do a panel interview with applicants. And we've gotten really good results out of that process, so we'll continue to do that.
And when did Kathleen start? Was she October or September?
Last Monday.
Okay.
Do you have a date that by which you'd like to have this person in the office?
Well, the sooner the better.
Well, sure,
But,
I
we
know,
had
but
I think the closing date,
Okay, that's what I wanted to
I think that was either this Friday
It's
or
next Friday.
it's next
Okay.
Friday.
27th.
Okay,
So that following week, we'll be looking to interview and bring forward a selection.
okay. So if anybody's out there watching, if you want this job, get your interest.
To be honest with you, it kind of gives us a little bit of breathing room, because when you bring in two brand new people,
Yeah.
Well, I
For
know.
sure.
There's
Yeah,
lots
this
to cover.
this is actually a little, yes, this is kind of
So
nice.
we've gotten actually Kathleen has moved very quickly getting on board. We now finally have her in the accounting system doing entry. We had some issues with our license with QuickBooks, our accounting software. It had lapsed. It was a 2017 license. So we ended up renewing that for $3,000 for the next year.
Oh wait, I'm sorry, so we're on update accounting. Is this under that? The
That's
accounting
part of it,
services?
that's
Okay.
part of it. I just wanted to let you know that we've done that now. There's new functionality in this new setup that gives me a lot more confidence that we will be able to avoid some of the confusing entries that we've had in the past. But I can give you an example in today's finance report that's in your packet about how certain things have been confusing. So if you open up the finance report that I included in your packet this evening, it should be here, 9:30. So these are the reports I want to give you, essentially monthly at minimum. There's two primary reports. You've seen this as a profit loss for us, it's not profit loss, because we are we do basis accounting, and because of that, we are always operating on predicted revenues and expenses. So the best strategy for you to manage, and even for me and the rest of the staff to manage how expenses and revenues come in, is this report right here. And it's basically our budget versus what has actually come in. Now,
Wait, I'm sorry, the accounting, so are you getting to the QuickBooks?
I can go further into the QuickBooks.
No,
but
I just wanted to finish if we've transitioned.
Yes,
So
I
you
kind
were
of,
giving us an
yeah.
update on the accounting software.
yeah.
And that update was, it was up, we had the 2017 license, you updated QuickBooks to a cost of $3,000.
Yes, and we're gonna stick with that for the duration of that license for sure.
Okay, and how long is that license?
It's 1 year. And with Kathleen on board, together, she and I will come up with a better evaluation to determine whether or not we need to make a change. The added functionality that came with the upgrade is significant though, and so it may be enough for us to say, you know, most of the kinks can be sorted, because one of the examples that we can now do is we can now journal between two different enterprises, which in our cases are our funds. And so you can open two at a time and do an entry between the two, and those will match, right? So what happened for us is those entries would get backlogged, and nobody would ever come back to them to reconcile them between the funds and having a clear figure. So the new software setup should allow us to be able to avoid that problem. And that way, it would give us a lot clearer picture about projected revenue and expense.
Okay, that's great. So just to, you had said you wanted to reevaluate and see whether QuickBooks would fit our needs, but it sounds like with this new update, it very well may.
It could.
Okay,
I'm less skeptical now that I can see the added functionality that we have. But we'll have to see if it will meet our needs or not. But I'm less inclined to be as dismissive of it now, because a lot of the biggest concerns have been mostly addressed.
Great.
okay,
So the budget to actual report will be a good tool for you all. We just, finished the third quarter. And so, this is a report that can be adjusted to include columns that you might find more beneficial. For instance, I could add in here another column that reflects the mid-year and the first quarter, so you can see, each of the individual quarters. And when you can compare those between prior year, that's actually a very helpful tool, because the spending in different quarters actually kind of fluctuates. So, it's a better tool for budgeting, it's a better tool for seeing financial activity. Here in your report, which I prepared for you, this has just a summary of the month's activity in these line items in that first column. MTD is month to date. YTD is year to date. So that column is what you would look at, obviously, to see, where are we at in total, and of course there is a budget line that also goes along with that. Now you'll notice, if you were to turn to page 3 of this report, you'll see that there were some items that didn't have a budget entry. The weapons and firearms is actually a new line I created to go into the 24 budget, but the chief wanted to have it available to track this year. So we didn't have a budget number to put in there. So if you see a line that lacks a budget number entry, it's because we didn't have anything in the budget at the time.
Yeah, and Ken, just so you know, we've been used to getting this kind of report every month for as long as I've ever been on council, and both my terms of council. And we saw things like that too, where there were budget lines where there was nothing budgeted, but we had an expense or a revenue, which would be better, but something that came up. So that part, we are used to seeing that. So.
All right, well, let's talk about the other half, the other important half of what will be the financial reports that begin moving forward. And that begins on page 6, this is the balance sheet. Everything that is ledgered on your books goes either between this and that other document, which is sometimes called an income statement or other things, revenue, expense, whatever. So I noticed that you haven't been receiving this document.
We used
No,
to.
we always got them.
As of recent, I haven't seen this.
Well, when
It's in
Samantha was here, we
Samantha,
did.
yeah,
It's in the
Samantha,
training report.
Yeah.
It has been?
yeah.
Yeah.
we
Well, I
got-
want to emphasize some of the things in here that don't make sense, so you guys understand why I have been at times confused. You'll notice these due from other fund figures, especially under other current assets.
Wait, I'm sorry, what page are you on?
I'm on page 6,
Okay.
okay? You'll see some figures in there,
Wait, I'm sorry.
and this is on the asset side for receivables, okay? So due from other funds is the money we expect to get
Oh,
transfer from another fund in to the general fund. And when you look at if you go another page down here, you'll see, actually at the bottom of the page, you'll see due from other funds. In this point, there's a line in there that says due to capital fund, okay?
Where
Wait, I
are you,
don't
Ken?
see
You
that.
didn't.
So this is on the bottom of page 6, under
To the capital.
other current
Oh, there we go.
liabilities.
So is that the 98,578.13?
Yeah,
Okay.
so if you look at some of the other balance sheets of these other funds, right, what you should expect is those figures would match, right? The due to capital fund here would reflect the,
Something coming into the capital fund, the
Yeah.
same amount.
on the other sheet.
Right.
That doesn't match right now.
Well,
So this has been the problem. What had confused me is that these entries were done, and don't get me wrong, every entry was made. Nothing's missing. It's just, when they started to use the tool to track, at times they never finished with a journal entry to correct it.
something got miscoded, yeah.
Yes. And so this left me with the uncertainty of knowing what was actually owed between funds.
what
And-
is that, Ken? What is the due from green fund? What is that?
That is a new fund you established in your
Oh.
last budget.
Okay, so this is the 2024 bleeding.
No, this is for
Yeah, right
2023, not for 2024. So if you go,
Right,
So if you go down further, you'll find the green fund, and
I-
you should see that coming out.
I should say the balance sheet reflects what is due regardless of year end. It will change. But let's say that transfer doesn't take place until maybe the mid-year of next year.
Wait, hold on for 1 sec. I'm sorry, we're trying to figure out the green fund.
We just want to keep going.
Let me explain to you the green fund, because it is an issue, because it was established.
There should be, how come there's not a balance sheet for it?
I can explain that.
Okay, thank you. Because
And I
could've
wanted
sworn
to
I'd
make
seen
sure
one,
that
so-
there isn't,
Okay, Well, then-
because I checked.
okay.
I'm not really quite sure how the book had been set up. There was an enterprise that was established, and it was established not exactly correct. It didn't have coding numbers and other things set up in it, and it only had an entry of the budget. It did not have any transaction entries. More confusingly, the administrative password was nowhere to be found. And we have only one password. And that was a query I had asked. Nobody could find it. Only he had a login. So we were able to look in it and find what was inside there. There is no transaction activity.
But wait, I'm sorry, you just said, when I said what's the green fund, you said that's the new fund that you added to 2024.
It's in the budget. And we've been instructed to create it, but it was never fully implemented.
So where's the 106, what is that figure?
$106,000
In
as of
September.
September 30. Well,
Yeah.
it's as of
No, it was
September.
established for this year. When you guys budgeted for 2023, you listed Fund 70 Green Fund, and it was supposed to be set up. Ken's right though, the enterprise was established, but there was no activity done in the account. And before Samantha had left, she had said that you'll wanna have the accountant come and like basically like finish setup of the fund. So
That wasn't necessary. I was able to do that, but now I need to work with Kathleen to actually finish those entries and get them up to speed.
So luckily, we've been tracking everything. That's why you're saying due from green fund is because we have been tracking any expenses that were supposed to go to that fund. So we can go back and do
And
that.
so,
I
so
can't say-
the expenses came out of the general fund, and so you're gonna be reimbursing the general fund
Yeah.
with
Okay.
funds that are in the capital fund.
Yes, there are complications.
Well, but that's a high level, this is what's happening,
Yes.
correct?
So right now, you do the math, the green fund would have a negative balance because it did not have enough revenue to sustain the expenses that were attributed to it. There was clearly a plan to have certain revenues come in. There was a note in the budget that said about 57,000 in return on investment for LED lighting would be moved. There's only one problem with that. We haven't achieved return on investment yet. So that money can be lent, I guess, from the general fund, but it does not exist yet until we have cost-free payback. And as you know, that was a few years out from the time that it was implemented. So I'm still considering paths on how we would remedy that. For the time being, we'll establish it with a negative balance. Its negative balance will essentially take from the balance that is the capital fund. Because it is essentially another capital fund, just a specified use. So that will be adjusted accordingly. But we'll be tracking back all the transactions. Technically tracking things like this through a receivable and payable line is not the best recommended technique. It is still better than nothing, so it gives us something to start with and sort that. For the time being, your understanding of that position can be derived from the information you have in this balance sheet, and that you can basically take the figure of due to and due from, and you can figure out what that balance would be. Now, there might be another with the capital fund too. There might be a due to and due from. I don't remember if that's in here or not. The capital sheet, the capital fund balance sheet is on page 9. And I don't think there is a due to, due from that green fund. So it really is just something dealing with the
Okay.
So, as you look at the way we have this divvied up, there may be a different way of how we're going to approach setting this up. The multiple checking accounts makes it very difficult for us, and it's added steps to move money around to make sure we have liquidity for certain projects. I'm hoping that at some point I will come forward to the committee and council, and we would adjust the equity accordingly to reflect what share of the fund belongs to what. Usually we would track appropriations and restricted funds on the equity line, which is the bottom category of your balance sheet. So where you see fund balance, capital fund, what that says right now is unrestricted.
Wait, I'm sorry for 1 sec. We're just looking back at the balance sheet.
Yeah.
Is there one in particular that would be good for us to look at as you're talking about?
Looking at page 9, the capital fund is fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and so,
So what you would normally see there is you would see the part of the cash investment equity that was, let's say, restricted for debt. You would see an appropriation line. This is similar to how you would see it in your audited financial statements. That separation would be listed in equity rather than as an independent asset. We would book it off of an equity line. Now, I can go over that a little bit more detail help when we're ready to make that transition. But that would be the process of how you would represent that in your balance sheet.
Okay, so Ken, can I stop you for a minute?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about Cindy or Ira, but a lot of what you're saying is way over my head. I don't know the way things are booked, I don't understand that, that's, so I guess what I do need to understand is whether there's something here that we need to, some kind of change that you're going to want to make down the road that we'll need to approve, or are these things that you're wanting to change just things that make sense to be changed from your knowledge of how it's best to run the financial side of things? So I don't want you to think that we can say, oh yeah, what you want to do is fine, because I really can't tell you.
No, I'm explaining to you what best financial practice is.
Well,
And where the reason, how you can verify that, you'll see it displayed in your audited financial statements in that very manner, because that's the typical way of how it would be recorded on a ledger.
so
Okay.
you're saying
Now-
that you want to change what we've been doing so that it more tracks with how our audit is
Yes.
presented. That's,
Okay, that
that's,
makes sense.
that makes sense, and
And that
that's,
was not one of the recommendations from our audit.
exactly, our auditors didn't say that, so
Well,
that's interesting,
to
but that
be-
is fine.
Yeah, this is best practice.
To be frank about our auditors, I asked them to come and present to you, and they told me that wasn't normal, nor was it best practice, and both Ellen and I know that is not
They
true.
came and presented.
Yeah, they came and presented
Well, the
this.
auditor told me that
But
I
they-
know they did,
Yeah,
at my
yeah.
request, but they were arguing that they didn't need to.
They always came.
Yeah.
That's very strange.
Well, I thought it was strange.
They did push back when we asked.
Yeah, that's strange though, they
Yeah.
always came.
Yeah.
They've always come.
Now,
And we passed the audit, so I don't know that having them come, I wouldn't
Yeah,
have
you
any
wouldn't-
questions
yeah, wouldn't
for
have
them.
yeah.
But I am surprised that they didn't say, hey, you
Yeah,
are
Could you,
not
you know,
reporting.
your balance sheet
I
that you're
mean-
using every month should match what we're doing.
I believe that in principle, what they are looking for is that we are booking and documenting things appropriately in a way that is intelligible and that can be tracked. And for their standard, they felt that was met. And the reason why they probably approached it in that way is because of the size of our operation and the fact that we never even had somebody dedicated to doing this sort of stuff. So that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the reason why I present this to you is I want you to understand why it has been difficult to easily assemble a budget, because one, a lot of the things that had been planned in the budget did not go as planned, and two, these figures, which I would normally rely upon, especially with year end, simply are not useful in and of themselves. I can explore the contents of those lines and the transaction
I think
activities.
what you mean is they just need to be more vetted, like you're saying.
Yeah.
We need to do journal corrections and verify these numbers in order to produce the budget is that why you're explaining all this to them, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, but
Okay.
thank you, that's nice, 'cause, yeah, and so that's all I
Yeah.
need to know really, because
Yeah.
when you start to talk about what the specific line items and things, I can't, I'm sorry, that's just not in my knowledge base,
Right.
and I've never had a need to learn that.
Well, I think it's always valuable to know it. I mean, the sheet is something that's very ubiquitous, and it's not, if you think about it in the broader conceptual nature that it is, it really isn't overly hard to follow. Assets are, your monies that you have on hand. They're your properties, your assets, things that are tangible and have value. It also consists of the money you expect to receive because we're accrual basis. So that, we have that receivable element, liabilities really constitute what we owe or what we plan to owe. And then the equity, which is the share of the actual value and what it is attributed to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I understand all that, it was
Right.
just
That's
the,
basic,
The-
yeah.
Okay.
so I mean, I think.
So let's, thinking we probably have 20, 25 minutes left. let's say, it is the expectation that we get these reports every month. Yeah, as we had in the past, so thank you for that. Let's move then to, we see, the update on the budget process.
Well, yeah, first I was gonna say, is there anybody in the public budget?
Oh,
Doesn't look
sorry.
like it, right?
I don't think there.
Public comment.
Thank you.
There's no one in the waiting room.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
Action items for council, we'll look at bills and minutes, but as far as
As far as a schedule,
yeah,
and this is something I'd like to have for you. I think about one more week here and we'll have a document that I can say is, comfortably complete. I'm just waiting on the chief to return from his training this week. And next week, I'd just like to go over some of the final figures with him and Jeff and make sure that we have everything in there, that we've slimmed down the things that we know we can slim down, and come back to you with something that is going to be more workable. And we are very close now, the closest we have been in the last few weeks. The only thing that kind of tossed me up here was the moment I found out we weren't going to get that 250. The other is also, and this is something I'm working to close and resolve, is our final contract with Amtrak. This is the major hurdle for the progress of that project. We are waiting on some utility stuff, but that stuff is expected to, fairly easily get resolved and sorted.
wait, I'm sorry, Ken, I want to go back just for the sake of the public to saying you missed the 250, and you're referring to the local share grant.
Yes, that is correct. I'm
Okay.
sorry. The context there is important. But for other opportunities for us to maximize our resources would be to avoid having to draw upon the $1.5 million 2022C bond issues, the general obligation issues that were issued sort of as a line of credit. However, it is a bond issue. It is packaged as a bond. We will need to decide how to use those funds prior to October of next year when principal payments will kick in. We are paying interest on that loan. That loan can be paid down. We can draw it down partially. We don't need to use it all. And so my goal is to try not to use it at all, and so that it can be paid off or close to paid off, so that we don't have such a large debt service levy need. Right now, that levy need is high, but that is also based on the presumption of using that 1.5. Now, the question will come down to, for the 1.5 million, if, one, we have to supply that 30% deposit to Amtrak, which we feel is unfair and unreflective of our financial responsibility for the project. We're only responsible for 5, so why not have us deposit 5?
Yeah, right.
That's reasonable, because they're gonna get their state and federal dollars.
Right.
So that's our argument to them. The other, and it is just as extremely important, is the insurance demands that they have on us. They have, in the contract, they want $30 million coverage for the project, okay? And just to put that in perspective, our insurance company is only potentially able to underwrite up to 10. And by the way, that would put a major burden on us insurance-wise, because it will raise all our costs. So our goal is to attempt to avoid that altogether. I mean, there should be insurance on this project. I don't think anybody disagrees. I think if it's at the $2 or $3 million range, that's something that is easily tolerable. $2 million is better because that fits within our policy, and we don't need to take out additional coverage. And so the goal is to aim for $2 million and get that in the contract. But if we have to go with that higher level, that is just gonna be a huge cost expense, that will be attributed to the project, and I don't believe is eligible for reimbursement. So, those are the two things we really need to hammer out. So the hope is that we hammer out here, especially within the next 2 to 3 weeks, the final contract for Amtrak, in which we get the terms that are most beneficial to us, and I think still beneficial to Amtrak, because they are indemnified liability-wise up to $2 million. So they don't have to pay a payout higher per occurrence than $2 million. So the question is why do they need us to have 30?
Yeah.
Right.
Now, granted, you know, our responsibility won't be absolved, and we don't have the same statutory protections that Amtrak has, or even PennDOT, which is unfortunate. I don't know why we don't deserve it either. We have only so much resources. But anyway, that is a huge question mark, and that will kind of drive how to plan the approach to reducing our debt load, because that's really what we do need. The other is to potentially help build up cash balance and start doing more long-range planning. This year, obviously, we're not gonna have a ton of time other than really focusing on next year and possibly the year after. But my hope is starting immediately next year, we can get rolling on capital planning on a broader sense, and we'll start looking at projects and try to stretch them out more. We don't always have the best strong cash position to always leverage so many projects at the same time. So if we could space them, not only can we leverage them, but we might even have them be more affordable packaged together. So there is a way, and that is coming. And I don't want us to ever have another budget where we're going down to the final months without having considered, this is not where I wanted us to be. The good news is we will be ready next month, and perhaps it might make sense for us to maybe schedule a few workshops that if you don't need, we don't have. But you can continue to work it until you get to somewhere where you're comfortable. Because I really don't want you to be left at the last moment. And in fact, the moment I know this document is done, I am sending it to you. I'm not waiting for a meeting packet. It's going out to you, and you'll have the materials.
So Ken, a question, and then, or I can go around if you wanna.
Yeah.
I'd like to look back to the $250,000 grant.
Sure, let's start
and just make sure we understand.
Well, we can talk about that here real quick. The plan here is to see if we can get it reallocated, and we have to act very quickly here, especially if we're going to try to make some of the upcoming deadlines. The state committee that approves the allocations for this program will be meeting in November and January. We want this at their November meeting. We want them to approve the reallocation of the funds, and that way we can put it towards a project that we feel is meaningful. Likely the community building library roof reinforcement project, which really is long overdue. That project, by the way, and the estimates are just fresh. It's $350,000 to $400,000, and so that will be huge because we have already nearly fully expended, or will fully expend, the bond issue that we took out for the buildings.
Okay.
So my estimates show us exceeding the amount that we have there this year.
Okay. And that's something that we can talk to those of us, who have relationships with that office, that it might be helpful.
Of course.
As well.
And we need everybody's help to advocate. I'm preparing a letter, which I plan to put out tomorrow to the agency, indicating why we were unable to, fulfill the original plan and how important this other project is, and and how urgent it is, and hopefully that will be enough for us to help get.
And reaching out, if somebody
Yes.
can reach out, I think,
Yes,
I have to believe she's
Yes,
gonna be
the
receptive to
contract dates are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, with 10
Senator
minutes and 9 minutes
Capillari,
left.
I spoke to the representative about this.
that.
She is, Representative Daley, she's very supportive and happy to help provide, letter support if needed. So, we certainly have her support right now. And, you know, the agency staff are very receptive to it, so I'm very hopeful that we can still recover the money just for a different purpose.
Right, super.
And this is actually kind of convenient, given that if we were to seek this grant again, it would take us longer to get a new award than getting a reappropriated one. So,
Okay, so any other questions about that? Ken, we had asked could we give an estimate, in 2024 permits, fees that we will see an influx? You know, so for example, when the Elm was built and these two buildings we saw, kind of a one-time gift. And we had asked, is there a way to anticipate with construction problems, construction projects,
Well-
not problems, of the 2024 budget?
oh, you mean when we'll be able to see those values become taxable? It's a great question. Based on the preliminary figures I got from the county board of assessment just a few weeks ago, which has been included in my estimate, that actually went out in the one general fund version you received, shows actually a small reduction in total value, which I thought was very odd.
Oh, this is property values.
Yeah.
Cindy, I think was
No, no,
talking
no.
about permit fees.
Yeah,
so-
permit fees for construction.
For construction. So
Oh,
the L.
you mean to evaluate whether or not we're covering costs?
No, to just see for, in putting in the budget for 2024 of the expected revenues.
Yeah.
You know, have you made some analysis of that to see, are there big projects coming in 2024 that will see permit?
You had in the general fund increase those line items. Remember last time we had looked at it?
Yeah, we made increases to the line items, and I had talked with Fred about this. He came up with a number that I thought was reasonable, and we put that in there now. It's not in the version you've seen yet. But expect that there probably will be more. We're certainly gonna get more this year, since we've received an application, a sizable one, so,
Right.
It's hard to estimate though.
I know.
Because like,
Right,
I
but
wouldn't even know how to estimate that because
Yeah.
council also did the resolution adopting like so building permits based on 3% of cost of construction, right? But we made that exception for these larger projects because if you pay 3% on that construction cost,
yes.
it'd be astronomical.
Yeah, no developer would come in here.
Right.
And we're mainly, we're trying to collect a fee that's reasonable, that's gonna cover the cost of the inspections and plan review. So that way we're not like making money off of it because that's not the point of building permits anyway, you're not
Right,
supposed to.
but we're trying to,
Yeah.
we're always trying to get that to balance out. And so if we're making some kind of projection on the expenses that we're gonna be incurring, and we just wanna make sure that we've then got, that there's some lining up in the sense of what our underlying assumptions are for those two line items, to make sure that, yes, if we've recognized, we're gonna have X number of more plans to review in 2024 than we did in 2023, so we've got to increase the cost for the folks doing that review. Well, we want to make sure that the revenue side also recognizes that, but we're going to get
This month.
money from the developers for.
Yeah, I mean, what would be good to know is like how much additional tax revenue are we gonna get?
Well, that was my
That's
second question.
Yes.
I mean, we're not going to be able to predict, we're going to have, I can't count off the top of my head, between the two, 35.
Remember, it's like
EITs.
2 years out before it actually hits the road.
That's what I was gonna say too, I don't think like it would obviously be complete in 2024, it's like 2025 looking like.
Right, yeah, that,
Probably.
exactly, but so like the Elm, I think they were able to like say, okay, yeah, it's not,
Yes.
it's gonna come in. I think it
Now,
was in the
yeah, we
2023
were able to
budget,
project it.
the tax revenues for
Right.
that.
I mean, there's also going to be, again, EIT
Yeah.
revenues that we're not going to be able to estimate, but we
Because
should
the-
understand, right, we
Well,
are
we-
going
we-
to have, wait,
we
I'm sorry, if I
should
can
be
finish
able
my
to.
sentence for a sec. Could we, well, no, we can't compare the EITs because we didn't have it from before the IMAX.
Exactly,
I'm
right,
sorry.
yep.
Yep,
Well,
No, the goal was to reach out to
Berkheimer,
Berkheimer. I've tried twice now. I'm gonna try making some more direct phone calls with them to see if I can get their assistance with coming up with something. We do have 3/4 of collection to go off of though, and that does give us something better than nothing.
Yeah.
And
sure,
the one thing though that we will have to factor in is population change, because as the occupancy of these new structures fill, we're going to have more people, so that means likely
Right.
more revenue.
well, yeah, that was my point of saying that we're gonna have these new apartments that are gonna bring in new EIT, and while, we probably can't give an estimate, we should know that that is one of the reasons why we supported transit density, is to help with that tax base.
We could-
And the money that was budgeted for EIT this year, it's looking like it's right on track.
Perfect,
So that's good to know. So,
great,
yeah.
And that figure came from the administrators, so I think they'll be a reliable source to get something fairly consistent.
yeah. Then Ira, if you don't have any questions, just, I guess, two hanging questions I had was, the emailing to community partners. I think the office was gonna reach out to community orgs to see if they had any budget requests and committee requests.
I was waiting to hear for requests specifically outside of the library and the fire department. I haven't heard anything, I'll reach out. Our budget is tight though this year, so I'll do what I can to try to structure any requests in there. But is it the practice that we go out and solicit, or is it the practice of the groups to approach us for funding?
Yes, I think I sent you the list of emails of here are the community partners that, we have reached out to in the past, the Civic Association, and these, the library, the NBA, I communicated with the cycling club, I don't know if we've given them athletics.
So, and we haven't given
NAA.
anything to the Civic Association, so.
Yeah,
No? Okay,
I understand the expectation, I'm fine with submitting letters to remind them, but it will be on these entities to approach us for their requests. I
Okay.
won't be out making sure that they've submitted something to us, I'll give them a reasonable deadline,
got it.
but we have to be realistic. I do focus on the library and the fire because they are part of what
Sure.
we do,
Right.
and they have been included, guaranteed.
Okay, and the NBA, so we have the three, the
And the
library,
yeah.
fire, NBA, the three heavy.
That's what I was gonna say.
And
Yeah.
NBA is
Perfect.
still in the budget,
Great.
and they did not indicate that they needed a change. And in fact, we've talked about adding to that figure.
Right, so I met actually with, Ed discussed as well with Emily, who visited FNA, the suggestion of compiling, increasing what you suggested, Ken, to 38 for the NBA, including the work is earmarked, and everybody was on board with that.
Okay.
The artwork.
Oh, the artwork, thank you.
I'm sorry, as like just earmarked
Yeah.
for them to figure that out,
Yes.
and it causes,
Right.
it has no effect on office staff time.
Right,
So
exactly.
they are fine with that arrangement. Okay, so then community partners, speak now or forever hold your peace.
It's really,
Yeah, I mean, we're going to continue to encourage them. And in fact, next year, there'll probably be a structured scheduled time and a good calendar that we're
Perfect.
going to have where they will be expected to kind of get that stuff into us.
And then Ira, I don't know, I mean, I'm on public health and safety, we talked about that in our committee. Did you, your committee, what, any budget, any
Oh.
capital, any requests? from
We have a
the
meeting
district?
coming next week, so.
Okay, here's the solicited, and we'll report to staff, okay. Okay, if we don't have any more questions or comments, I would love to adjourn to give us time to refill water bottles and use the
Sure.
restroom.
You grab a soda?
Yes, grab a soda, okay, a motion,
I move that we adjourn.
perfect,
Second.
got it. All in favor? Adjourn. All right, thanks, folks.
Ken, thank you, that was helpful.
Thank you, yeah.